and you all are doing that here, thanks in large part to the leadership of the mayor and all of the work that the council is doing over here. And I'm happy to partner with Westlake in the southwest region of our state. I know that you got a new police station coming online in the next couple of months, and we were able to help you all with that. We think we figured out an alternative design on I-10 that we can move forward without having to wait. Well, we still got to find some money, but without having to wait on the litigation, and it will preserve the on-ramp and off-ramp here at Westlake, which is going to be critical for your continued success. Look, the fact of the matter is Louisiana and is much like Westlake. I know that 3 or 4 years ago, things were tough. I know that the city was very short on its budget. I know that there wasn't a whole lot moving. That's the same way the state was. 3 years ago, when I came into office, we were $2 billion short. Now, the state of Louisiana has never been $2 billion short. That was the biggest deficit in the history of our state. And it wasn't just the $2 billion deficit that was left me. Over the previous 8 years, $3 billion had been swept out of our trust funds. The money was just gone. And it was put in the budget to pay for recurring expenditures, even though the money wasn't recurring. And so the interest income on our trust accounts went from about $140 million to $12 million whenever I went in. So similar situation, and you got to make hard decisions. But you got to do a balanced approach. And that's what we did in Louisiana. Working with the legislature, and I know Senator Ronnie Johns is here. I want to thank you very much for being here, but also your work. And I know we're in your district, by the way. It's good to be over in your district, but your work there has been phenomenal. And I enjoy working with Ronnie. In fact, I enjoy working with the entire Southwestern Louisiana delegation. But I just want you to think about where this city was, where this state was 3 years ago, and think about it today. We're doing so much better today. In fact, when we closed the books on June 30th, we actually have a $300 million surplus from last year. Now, that is a good thing, because for years and years we had deficits, and those mid-year deficits require cuts. And those mid-year cuts are very destabilizing, and we actually cut funding for higher education in Louisiana in the 8 years before I became governor more than any other state in the nation. And we raised tuition more than any other state in the nation. It was a policy decision that was really put us on a road to disaster. But we're doing better today. We're funding higher education. We're meeting our obligations to our top students, and we're funding need-based aid for higher education at an all-time high in Louisiana. And remember, the $300 million surplus was for last fiscal year. For the fiscal year that started July 1st, we actually reduced the taxes in the state of Louisiana by $600 million. And we still have revenue that is coming in ahead of the forecast, because we have more people working, making more money, and more businesses more profitable than the economists had predicted. Those are good things. There's nothing bad about that arrangement that I just told you. And it's going to allow us to continue to make necessary investments, whether it's in Sewella or McNeese or in our transportation system. I mean, you name it. So I'm excited about what we're doing, and you should be excited too. You know, just last week, I think you may have seen this, U.S. News and World Report said that if you look at all the cities in the United States of America, over the last few years, the strongest job growth in the country is in the greater metropolitan area of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Think about that. Lake Charles, Louisiana. And then we know as a state we're doing well too, because the GDP growth for the second quarter was the 12th strongest in the entire country. And in fact, we're stronger than 9 other southeastern states in terms of our GDP growth, which was 4.3%. And by the way, GDP today in Louisiana is the highest it has ever been. Last year, no state's unemployment rate declined more than ours here in Louisiana. Wage growth is 5.9% in Louisiana, second only to Texas, which was 6%. And by the way, I went to Texas Saturday night. I don't want to ever see something like that again. I don't mind the 7 overtimes, but we better win. And we can get a little revenge Thursday night when the Saints go over there and beat the Dallas Cowboys. But that was tough. But we're doing better because we're making better decisions. And quite honestly, the budget gimmicks are gone. We're not taking one-time money and putting it in the budget against recurring expenditures. There's no smoke and mirrors about it. And so we are doing better. And that's why I'm excited about being the governor of our state, because we can do things that will help with the challenges that we face all over the state of Louisiana. In fact, we're already doing that. Since I've been governor, we've cut in half the number of people without health insurance in the state of Louisiana. It's at an all-time low. And we did it through the Medicaid expansion. And do you know that the net cost to the state of Louisiana since we expanded Medicaid is we've saved $300 million state general fund, so that working poor people have access to health insurance. Let me just explain to you real quickly how that works. If someone is uninsured and they go to the hospital, the state of Louisiana pays 40 cents on the dollar for that care. But through this program, we can give them health insurance for no more than 10 cents on the dollar. And the 10 cents comes from a statutory dedication we wouldn't have but for the fact that we expanded Medicaid, whereas the 40 cents comes from the general fund, and that's where we were short. So we've saved $300 million in 2 years by giving people health insurance, but most importantly, we're improving people's lives because they are healthier and more productive. They are staying in the workforce longer, and in many cases, they have a chance to live. The same Catholic Christian faith that leads me to be pro-life on abortion tells me that the pro-life position is to support people having health care too, especially working poor people. The only reason they don't have it is because they don't make enough to buy insurance themselves and their employers don't offer it. They get access to live because now they get diagnosed with those diseases while it's still early enough to receive treatment and live. So I'm excited about the Medicaid expansion. And by the way, while it's not costing us general fund dollars, it's creating $100 million in general fund revenue because it created 19,000 jobs all over the state of Louisiana. Because we brought $1.85 billion of your federal taxes back to Louisiana that gets spent all over the state providing health care. The economic impact is actually $3.5 billion and 19,000 jobs and $100 million in general fund revenue. It's just the right thing to do. Speaking of the right thing to do, I will tell you that Louisiana, for the first time in decades, does not have the nation's highest incarceration rate. Why is that important? Because we were not safer as a result of having the high. In fact, I will tell you that our crime rate was higher than it should have been. Our recidivism rate was higher than it should have been, because we found out we were putting people in prison more than any other state in the nation for drug possession and other nonviolent crimes, rather than shorter prison sentence or prison alternatives altogether. And so we've done comprehensive criminal justice reform, focusing on nonviolent, non-sex offenders, and it was bipartisan, and it's already working. And we have reinvested. This is the most significant thing, and Senator Johns insisted that we do it this way. And from his position on the Finance Committee, he holds a lot of sway in that body. We reinvested 70% of the savings in our criminal justice system to make sure that our approach is going to work, that we are investing in health care and in terms of substance abuse disorders, for example, for people while they're in prison, that we're educating and training people while they're in prison, that we are doing things necessary so that they can successfully re-enter society. Because this is what he understands and what I understand, 95% of the people in prison are going to get out. And if you don't do something to prepare them to be successful when they get out, then they are going to go back to a life of crime, and you are going to create more crime victims. So if we want to be safer, this is the approach to take. And we didn't do anything in Louisiana that hadn't been done in other southern conservative states, from Texas to Georgia to Florida to South Carolina, and that's how we know that it's going to work. In fact, I've been invited to go to the White House twice to visit with the president and his staff to talk about criminal justice reform, because they are now pushing criminal justice reform at the federal level, and they wanted to see what we did in Louisiana. By the way, I've been invited, I think, 8 times to Washington to visit with this president and his staff. And you're saying, well, why does he do that? You're a Democrat. I am a Democrat. But have you ever seen me on the news trashing our president? It doesn't, why would I do that? If you want to govern the state of Louisiana, you need to have a good partner in the White House. You need to get along with people, you know. So we do have a good relationship, and I will tell you that I think it inures to the benefit of the state of Louisiana. We're always competitive when it comes to seeking grants and other assistance from the federal government, and you know, we're excited about that relationship. So we're doing much better in Louisiana, but I will tell you there are still challenges. There are still challenges that we have to face. One of the challenges is we're not doing as well as we want to do in terms of our K through 12 education. I know I got a lot of educators in the room. I'm married to one, and I want to thank you very much for your service over a lifetime, your dedication, commitment to our youth. But we're not doing as well as we would like to do. And it turns out that about 35% of our students are being taught by teachers who are either not certified or they're not certified to teach what they're teaching, because we're not attracting and retaining enough teachers. And one of the reasons is we are now $2,200 below the Southern average for pay. And we haven't increased teacher pay in a long time in the state of Louisiana. We haven't given that annual increase to our funding formula for K through 12 schools. So my number one priority next year, and I said this months ago, is going to be an increase in the MFP, so that, and teacher pay raises of $1,000 and support worker pay raises of $500. We have to do that. If we truly prioritize our kids, we have to put their education front and center. And the most important ingredient to quality education is to have a highly motivated, professional teacher in that classroom. And so we have to do this. And I'm excited about the opportunity we have, because we can fund this pay raise through the growth that we have. We don't have to go and raise revenue somewhere else. In fact, I just told you, we started this current fiscal year by cutting $600 million. We already have revenue that's coming in above the forecast, and we can use that to fund this pay raise without raising money somewhere else or cutting somewhere else that is also a priority. So I just want you to be as excited about our state as I am. And I want to thank you very much for your support. And I'm looking forward to Mr. Ken's fine cooking here tonight. And I want to thank all of you for coming out. And look, the hardest thing for any politician, I shouldn't say any politician, but for me is to ask for money. Because that's not fun. I enjoy meeting people, I enjoy talking to people, I enjoy traveling. But the money is so critically important, because we know we have a good message to tell. But if you don't have the resources to tell it, it doesn't do you any good. So your generosity, your support will make it possible for us to spread the message next year as we run for re-election. By the way, the election is less than a year from now. It's hard for me to believe that it's that time already. But next October will be the election. I look forward to this because, you know, the simple fact of the matter is, when you run for election, you got to get people to take a chance on you. When you run for re-election, the biggest hurdle is people have to believe they're better off than they were before. Well, I look forward to making that case in every part of the state of Louisiana, because we are so much better off. And we did it the old-fashioned way, by working together, compromise. You know, I enjoy working with the legislature. I enjoy working with local government. I enjoy working with business and industry, people from all over the state. I enjoy working with our federal partners. This is the way it's supposed to be done. And you shouldn't have to fight over everything just because of whoever's idea it was Democrat or it was Republican. It's either a good idea or it's not. And the political discourse in this country is sorely lacking today. And if you just turn on the TV and you see what's happening in Washington, I hope, like me, you say, I don't want that in Louisiana. I don't want to model that behavior to our children and have them think that that's the way we should grow up talking to one another. You know, because they're screaming at one another and nobody's listening and really nothing's happening. Well, it's not like that in Louisiana. And you've got my commitment as your governor that I will always work to try to make sure that we have civil political discourse and that we can produce results like we've been doing. And I look forward to the opportunity to do that for 4 more years following this term so that we can continue the progress. I want to thank you very much, Vernon, Carolyn, for your work, your friendship over the years, and in organizing this and really working so hard. I didn't know when he told me he was going to, I guess when he told me he wanted to do this, he didn't know he was going to have that accident either. But you know, he couldn't even walk for a while, but he was calling and pestering all of you all about coming out here tonight. So I just want to thank you so much, Vernon and Miss Carolyn, for your friendship and your support. And then finally, I would just ask all of you to join your prayers to mine for our state and for our nation, that we can come together and just talk and reason. And we will find out we have so much more in common than we have that divides us. You know, that's the good thing about being a Louisianan, being an American. But somehow we just have to do better. And I'm an optimist. I believe that we will. So God bless you. Thank you for your support. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas this year. And may 2019 be the best year ever. And may it be the year that I get reelected as governor. God bless you. Thank you.